Blooming heck, are you going to finish that car? You need to finish a car. I'm going to finish this car. Enjoy the video. Before we get into it though, can you check you're subscribed? YouTube is unsubscribing people. They keep telling me. You do, that is not YouTube. I don't know what's going on. It's ridiculous. I can't be asked to fight it. I'm never going to make any money out of YouTube anyway. So, if you fancy supporting the channel, then there's a PayPal.me link scrolling down here. All donations are gratefully received. Thank you very much. If you fancy buying me a beer, then add into the comments in your donation. Buy yourself a beer, Richard. And you might even get a shout out on the next Beer and Me Talking Nonsense. If you want to contact me, Church House Classics, it's all one word, @gmail.com. Enjoy the video. Gearbox is back on. I'm just going around doing the gazillion bolts back up again. I got the gearbox back up into position. I mean, the ramps are very useful because you can get right under the car. Use one of these chappies. I had the strap over the top. The only problem with putting the strap over the top is you can't undo the strap once the gearbox is in position. So the simple way around that is you undo the bolts on the ends of the strap and then the strap comes off. Fantastic. There's always a way, isn't there? Now the gearbox is now supported on Mr. Trolley Jack, and I'm going to go around and basically put each of the bolts back in. Some of these are utter bastards to get fitted. The bolts, majority of the bolts are 1.5 inch long, 5/16 UNF. These chappies. I mean, this lot I bought as a kit, but I've got a box of 1.5 inch, 5/16 bolts. It makes no odds really. Spring washers and nuts. What you're going to need though is you probably really need a 2-inch long bolt in order to start the process of pulling the gearbox into position. Clatter, 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 clatter. There we go, we can see nothing now, can we? Because we've gone for the wrong direction and I've got wedged. Get off. Right, let's try that again. So, dangling down here, we've got the reverse gear wiring. So pull the gearbox into position, put a bolt top and bottom. Don't do any of the bolts up tight until you've got them all located. There is a dowel bolt. It's up at the top above the clutch slave on the driver's side, on the right hand side of the gearbox cover. I thought there were 2 dowel bolts on the Stag, but unable to find another one. Let's get back out from under here. All hail the Mac Tools prayer mat. Very comfortable, that thing. So let me get a 5/16 bolt, sorry, 3/8 bolt, which is pretty much where the dowel bolt is. So if I look at the face of the dead gearbox, so we've got the right hand side and there's dowel bolt position is pretty much about there. Okay, so you've got this extra housing here. That one is not a dowel bolt housing because it's floppy as a dick in a bucket. It's this one up here, I think, is the dowel bolt. I don't think there's any others on. Oh, one over there, look at that one. There's one that side. Right there. That's just above where the, literally just above where the clutch fork goes through. I'll get that one located as well now. I'm not going to video it because it's hours of footage. I say it every bloody time, don't I? I was going to crack on with putting this thing in. But that one might be a blank because, and I say because, the starter motor goes in here. That one might be a herring rouge. So I think that this one over here is the one you should be working for, because the starter motor goes there, so you won't be able to access that one. Yeah, and then I can start putting all of these in. The ones specifically around this area are a right bastard to get to, mainly because the left-hand cylinder head's in the way. So what I'm ultimately going to have to do here is, at the moment I've got the block of wood in there, ready just to protect the back of the engine from dropping down too far. I'm actually going to take that out now. so I can get access to put some of these bolts in. When it comes to putting the bolts around the top, your very best friend here is going to be a magnet, because you can position the magnet in, push the bolts through the hole once it's roughly in place, then you can put the nuts on it. They're a bastard to get in though, so I'm not going to video it, as I say, because there'll be lots of swearing, I'm sure. And it's 20 to 5 and I want to get this thing bolted up today. Been on the phone most of the day, but it's been about a couple of hours to get to this point. Just belt and braces, checking everything, and now we've done that, because the gearbox is actually more or less at the right height. You can see that because the engine is more or less at the right height. So I'll probably get this piece of wood out now. I should be able to. Why don't I do it while I'm videoing? Come on, you bastard. There we are, it's out. Oh, it's stuck on that fixing down there, look at that. Right, okay. So with that out the way, thank you, Mr. Bit of Wood. Don't need you anymore. I can lower the jack down, which will drop the gearbox down enough for me to get my hand in down here between the transmission tunnel and the gearbox to get those bolts along the top edge. So let's go and have a quick look at that. 3/8 location, the dowel bolt that I just mentioned. There we go. Down here, so it was just above where the cross shaft goes through. Yeah, starter edge is there, so that's definitely a herring rouge. The dowel bolt's on the driver's side, just above that recess up there. Right. Okie dokie. Fun and games. That's it, in and bolted up. I need to sort the speedo cable out there because something's gone wrong there, but that's not really a problem. I'll be able to sort that out in a minute. Quite why it's up there, I couldn't tell you. Yes, so all of those bolts now are on the bulkhead. Special tools, pry bar, a selection of wobble bars, 1/2 inch and 9/16 sockets, a whole bunch of spanners at various different angles, 2 ends. Most of my knuckles are still intact, preferably one finger which you haven't squashed on a Range Rover last week, so you've lost all the feeling in it again. A plethora of swear words. Honestly, if you can't do this job without being able to drop the C-bomb, then I would just not do it. In all honesty, if I were faced with this again, and especially bearing in mind I had to do the exhausts on this as well, I'd lift the engine and gearbox out, do it on the deck and put it back in again. It has taken me just over 3.5 hours to get this box back in. Okay, working on my own, 3.5 hours. That's not been fun. I'm going home for a beer, and it's Wednesday. Car's being picked up on Sunday, so we're back on target again. Oh, that was hard work. I'm pleased it's on now though. So looks like Simon's going to have an overdrive gearbox on his Stag. Yeah, so tomorrow just really finish off putting it together, get it off the ramps. I mean, everything's achievable. I've managed to get the bolt down there, El Bastardo, which is the one that's directly below the back edge of the left-hand cylinder head. It's called El Bastardo because it is worthy of that name. I managed to get that one in. And the one that caused me the most bother, I think, is the one which is also tricky, but it's that one there that's down behind the left-hand hip. And I had to go in from underneath. Oh, one tool I forgot to mention is a, let's put this down for a second, a magnet Very, very useful, popping bolts in. The other thing that's incredibly useful, get one of these little button magnets, because that then sticks on the back of your spanner, and when you put the nut in there, there's a nut there, the nut stays in. I mean, you could also, I guess, put the magnet actually on the shaft of the spanner and it's going to stay in there. Of course, that nut is not going to go in there, is it? It's probably because it's 13. But you get the drift. There's a spanner there that's a 13. So I was even messing around with 13 spanners. There we are. See? Quite a neat idea, huh? And if you were to move the spanner, move the magnet onto the spanner, it's less of a grip. So really, by popping it behind or in front of the spanner, gives you a fighting chance. What I'd normally have done, had it not been quite warm today and I've been getting oily and sweaty, is you put one of these type magnets in the end of your finger and put a plastic glove on, and then you could stick the nuts onto your finger or magnetise your fingers. Right, I think on that note, that's been a success. I've achieved what I wanted to achieve today. It's always good to have targets in this game. I'd like to have got it done a little bit sooner, because then I could have cracked on with doing some of the other bits and bobs. But yes, gearbox is back on. And the starter motor is in. Beautiful. Just beautiful. Now, I'm going to do a slight modification here on the starter motor wiring, and I'll explain why. Because we are a manual transmissioned stag rather than an automatic, we don't need the inhibit switch for the starter solenoid. The white and red wire goes to the starter solenoid, so it comes directly from the ignition switch, goes via this little loop on, this is a Mark 1, so it's an oblong connector, but on the Mark 2 it's what's known as the bloody boat-shaped connector, and it sits down here in amongst all of the road crap. Now, if I separate this out, you'll see that on the gearbox side, all it does is it takes the white and red wire and loops it back. Okay? And these connectors, well, they get filthy, don't they? Absolutely filthy. And it really doesn't help. So what you can effectively do here is you can take the white and red wire, you can unwrap the loom, and you can find out where in the loom, because it'll be wrapped up like that, it goes to on the loom side. And really all you want to do is to chop, join. And you bypass the connector then for the starter solenoid. You don't need a relay, you don't need anything. If you're getting click nothing, then it's highly likely that the circuit's got high resistance on this plug, because it just sits hidden away in a world of crap. Now, the other wire we're going to do away with on here, because we've got a Petronics setup on this. We don't need the starter solenoid boost wire, which is this chappy here. So white and orange, or white and red wire. It might be white and pink. So we need the white and red going to the starter solenoid. We don't need the boost wire going to the ignition core, so I can actually do away with that. Because the idea is that when you click the starter solenoid, it sends 12 volts straight to the ignition coil positive. The ignition coil, being a ballasted ignition coil originally, will give it a super boost and allow it to start easily. However, we're not using a ballasted coil here, nor are we using a ballast resistor. So there's little point in putting that piece of the circuit back in place. I'll leave the wire in place. It'll be isolated. It won't be connected to anything. We don't need to worry about it. Right, so that was really that. And when we look at, where's the other end of the wire gone? What have I done with it? Did I take it out? I thought I took it out. I did take it out. So what happened to it? Did I bring it over here? Fuck's sake, pixies. I'm going to have to go watch through the video to find out where the bastard thing went to. It's just unbelievable, isn't it? Yeah, there's a lump of wire around somewhere. This car looks like it's got a new loom in it, which I'm quite surprised about. You don't often see new looms going into stags. There must have been something quite devastating happen to it. The other thing I've just noticed, there's a big burn mark on that wire there. So I'm going to get almost, oh there it is up there, look at that. So you can see how, if we go out into the daylight, let's go into the daylight, let's get some vitamin D. You can see how, I mean I've cleaned that as well, you can see how grubby it gets. And that's just going to go, and you're going to turn your ignition switch on and you're going to try and start it and it's going to say nah. And it's going to generate heat and then it'll just melt this. This is the whole gearbox loom, by the way. So the orange and purple wire is the wire that goes to the overdrive in theory, but because this gearbox was fitted with a, sorry, was replaced with a saloon box which didn't have overdrive, they've taped that in there somewhere. So, and as you know, I'm running the overdrive feed directly down by the gear stick. It's not going to go right the way through the loom and back out again. So the yellow and purple wire is redundant. I'm going to bridge the white and red wire so that it connects directly to the back of the starter solenoid. We don't need this plug. And then I'll connect up the green wires for the reverse light switch. Piece of cake. Got the distributor in position, and yes, of course it started. I had to fiddle around with the distributor a little bit, rotating it to get the right sort of position, but yes, it started up, no problems at all. So then I messed around getting the viscous fan on. I had a problem with the viscous fan because the pulley, the power steering pulley on the front, is a Mark 1, as is the viscous fan. It's all Mark 1 stuff, and the viscous unit is dead. So I went into the unit and found another one, Mark 1. The viscous unit is also dead. So I've got two Mark 1 fans and no viscous units, and a broken pulley. Well, knackered pulley. So my mate Paul, cheers Paul, came over with I had a Mark II pulley luckily, but Paul came over with the Mark II fan and I was able to bolt that up to the Land Rover Mark II, Land Rover viscous fan, which is a ERC 2849G, and that will fit the stag. So it's the equivalent of the Mark II viscous fan unit. Fan's going nuts. So did that, bled the clutch through using, I didn't really kind of video any of this, which is probably not very helpful to you good guys, but attach the bleed nipple to the slave, run it up and into the engine bay up here, put it in the end in a jam jar, pump the pedal until all the bubbles stop coming out of it, and then working with an assistant or an insistent, you get them to push the pedal down. You open the bleed nipple, you close the bleed nipple, you get them to release the clutch pedal and repeat 2 or 3 times, and yes, clutch works fine. So I've kind of run out of time today. Look, 6:12, and it's a nice evening and I'm going home. This is being picked up on Sunday, so I'm rather hoping that I can get some work done on this either Sunday morning or tomorrow afternoon. Or contact the customer and tell them to come pick it up on Monday instead. Because it's too nice a day to be busting my arse working on this at this stage. Good news is that when it ran quite nicely, as I would have expected it to have done. Right, that's ready to go away. Yeah, so all I really need to do, I need to put the clamps on the exhaust, I need to put the radiator in, I need to do the cooling system, put the PAS belt back on, I need to set the ignition timing, and we're pretty much done in the engine bay at that point. I need to find another better filter than that. And then I'm going to rebuild the interior, jack up the back end of the car, sort out the exhaust mounts because they're horrible, and I'll go through that. And then we're ready for collection. So this might actually be a Monday collection rather than a Sunday collection. And there's my phone. It's the other way round, which is good news. Overdrive is working, which is good news. It's a sweet gearbox, this one. I've been out for a test drive. So nice and quiet, nice and precise. The only issue I've got is the clutch hydraulics. And if you remember rightly from episode 1, insert picture here, the slave cylinder was extended right out, padded out from the engine plate. So, one of two things has happened here. Either we got the wrong fork, or we got the wrong slave, or, third of the two things, the wrong master. So, I have agreed with the customer that will delay the pickup because it's a bugger to drive, I'll be honest. Yeah, you can get it going, but once it's going, you don't really need the clutch to work. The issue now is, of course, because the slave is now operating in a slightly different location to where it was located, it's now leaking, of course. So I've bought myself a pile of bits. This is a Land Rover manual underneath it, unfortunately. Bought myself a new slave, new master, new fork. We can get those fitted and see if we can't get it working. But yes, I think. Right, so this is how I've currently got it fitted. You can see I've put 2 spaces in between the slave cylinder, the base plate of the slave cylinder, and the engine plate. That then, along with the top hole on the fork, has allowed me to get it to where I want it to be. But it doesn't work. It's not right. So slave is going to come off. The slave is located the correct side of the engine plate. So many people put it in with that bit on the engine side, and that's wrong. I am considering that the slave or the push rod or the master are incorrect, or one of all three, or all three, or all three indeed, or all. Yes. It's all very nice under here though. Look at that nice gearbox. What a beauty. Right. Oh my goodness. That's a long way up. Yes, I could have a 4-post lift. Where am I going to put a 4-post lift? Probably where the green car is. Yes. Right, let's unbox. Hello. Managed to do that without cutting your fingers off, didn't I? Good work, that. So in here we have got a giant jiffy bag. We have got a new slave, we have a master TRW, and we have a push rod. Now already this is looking longer than the one I've got, so we're going to see. We are going to see. Slave is leaking anyway, so that needs to be changed. So let me go and get the bits off the car, and I shall report back. The old slave. Probably can't say that anymore. Right, now, this was a bastard to get out. The reason it was a bastard to get out is because its stick was sticking in the bore. Now, I would expect that to operate like that normally, but it took me quite a lot of work, including, and even now you see it's tight, cleaning the bore out, and you can see the bore here is particularly nasty. You might not be able to see it, I don't know. Can you see it? Let me just see if I can clean it out. The bore's rusty. We get a Torchy McTorch face. There we are, Torchy McTorch face. You see that? And it's all rust in the bore that's above where the seal was. So I don't think the push rod, the hydraulics, was extending far enough. I think it was extending to about an inch below the bore, which then would have made the push rod too short. So that's scrap. Push rods are exactly the same, so I'm going to use the original. That one can go back. Master, I don't think the master needs changing. I think we will, because we found an obvious fault with the slave, and there's the crumbs. That spring looks a bit fucking weak, doesn't it? It's quite beefy, but do I put that spring on there? That spring that's supplied with this particular unit doesn't seem particularly robust, does it? Doesn't push anywhere near as far So I'm actually inclined to swap that spring over. It's a bit piss poor, isn't it, Richard? Can't get this out now. That's how good that spring is. Oops, that's alive. I mean, it has got a certain amount of tension in it. I am inclined to put the old spring on the new slave, bollocks to it. We'll see where we go to with it. You can see already it pushes the slave much further back. Now, I know hydraulic pressure and all that, and blah-de-blah-de-blah should do that. We put this spring, it doesn't even fit on there, look. Because the push rod is a different design. It's a push rod. The base of the plunger is a different design. That seal is not looking the best either. You can see there's lots of, I can see crazing all around the outside of the seal here. So that was why it was leaking. The seal fucks. Probably can't say that either. What do you like, boys? Oh, do we trust that? So that, where it springs to the end of the ball, would suggest to me that's the way to go. Old spring, new slave. Again, probably can't say that either. There's so many things we can't say anymore. It's not going to come out of there now. There it is. Right. Bollocks to it. That's what's going to happen. Right, let's put this back together now. Then we can bleed the clutch through. See? Piston goes to the end of the ball. Right, okay, bollocks to that. Let's put the seal back on the end. Dust cap. Old push rod. One consideration, does this spring compress down as much as the I think it does. It's bottoming out. That's fine. Bollocks to it. Overthinking it, Richard. Let's put it on. It's already taken me half an hour longer than I wanted because I've been talking you guys through it. That's good. Right, we can go on. Bearing in mind the luck I've had with this car, I thought, oh, the customer supplied me with another reservoir for the clutch slave to replace that disaster zone. Well, I put a pipe on it, clamped the pipe nice and tight, and I put some thinners in it, and look, it's just pouring out. It's got a leak, chap. Can't use that. Probably could if you got some brake-friendly paint, poured it in there and sealed it, but it's not uncommon for these tin cans to leak. It's leaking from under there somewhere. I couldn't tell you where, I can't be asked. Too much aggravation. Right, just need to bleed the brakes, bleed the clutch through on this. And then that's another job done. Woohoo! And the clutch is all working. Now, I had it working in the workshop, went out for a test drive, and I was struggling to get it to engage again. And then I started looking at these bloody beautiful but incredibly chunky carpets, where you could see here the tram lines from the clutch pedal. Yeah, carpet's too thick. I can't get the clutch to bite any higher. It starts to bite about 1 inch from the floor, but that is getting on for 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch thick. So when my other foot is on it and it's perhaps pulling it down, yeah, it's hindering the clutch performance, which is why I took the carpet out and then found, it drives beautifully. Now, it's gone back in as per standard, so there's no spacers in between the engine plate and the clutch. And then I was having struggles with the interior lights. That ain't very good, is it? I've seen better than that one. And these cheapo nasty LED jobbies, you probably buy them off eBay, but these have died. I suspect they died because the alternator's putting out 13 point whatever volts and they're rated to 12 volts. So they've been operating beyond their potential. But yes, customers going to collect this. That'd be nice. And I've been around and about, drives beautifully. Very happy. Nice job, Richard, if I don't mind saying so myself.